بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وعلى. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Before we actually get into it, the importance of saying Bismillah, starting in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of our actions. Today, one of our classes, Ad-Da wa-Du'a, by Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, the sickness and the dawa, the cure, the sicknesses of the heart and the cure for the heart. And we talked about how Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah and just about every other author, they start with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They start with Alhamdulillah, they start with Bismillah. And the importance of starting our actions with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Kullu amrin dhi balin lam yubda bi Bismillahi fahuwa aqta' or fahuwa ajzam. And one narration, bihamdillah, instead of bi Bismillah. That any action which is not started with Alhamdulillah or which is not started with Bismillah, in essence, any name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's deficient. It's not complete. It has no barakah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever action that may be. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had this habit as well. Every action of his was started with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those ad'iyah that we study from childhood, waking up, Alhamdulillah alladhi ahyana ba'da ma amatana wa ilayhi nushur. Going to the bathroom, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal-khaba'ith. Remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before every action. Putting on your clothes, saying Bismillah. Walking into the house, saying the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Partaking in a meal, Bismillahi awwaluhu wa Bismillahi wa barakatillah. Finishing a meal, saying Alhamdulillah. Right? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had this, if you want to call it, obsession with remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with every action. Right? The Salaf used to say that if you want to become a wali of Allah, if you want to become from the awliya of Allah, the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the close friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi, this is a friend which a wali is a state, is a type of friend that your bosom friend, like your best friend, your ride or die. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, if I was to take a wali besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I would have taken Abu Bakr as my friend. So even Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as close as he was with Abu Bakr, as close as he was with Umar, as close as he was with Uthman, Ali, all of these companions, he didn't consider them his wali, that close of a friend, right? He said, but Abu Bakr is my companion. Abu Bakr is my companion. That relationship he had exclusively for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that friendship. So they used to say, if you want to become a wali of Allah, it is sufficient for you to just remember Allah before every action. You'll become a straight friend of Allah. Why? Because before you do anything questionable, you're not going to say Bismillah. You ain't going to text her and say Bismillah. You're not going to shoot your shot like that. It's not how it's going to work. You say Astaghfirullah and you're going to put your phone away. Right? You're only going to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're only going to say the name of Allah before you do a good action. And anything which is questionable, since you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your mind before every action, you're going to have enough enough within you to stop. All right. So saying the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before every action is extremely, extremely important. Last week we went over about sujood al-sahw, the sajda of forgetfulness. And I'll recap again, inshallah, today before continuing with today's lesson. سجود السهو واجب في الزيادة والنقصان بعد السلام. Sajda al-sahw is wajib due to the increasing or the decreasing of anything within salah, and it is done after salah. An individual does two sajdas, ثم يتشهد, then he reads the tashahhud, and then he says assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. How is it done? Why is it done? In the case of increasing something or decreasing something within salah. And he'll explain a little bit further. Due to increasing something or decreasing something in salah, it is wajib to do, it is necessary to do. How is it done? After you say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, you will go down, do two sajdas, then you'll sit down in tashahhud, you'll recite the tashahhud, and then you'll say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Now there are multiple ways of doing sajdat al-sahw. According to the Ahnaf, this is the way that the Ahnaf do it. That after recitation of tashahhud, you'll say assalamu alaikum, and then do as we just mentioned. The other madhahib, what they do, he'll terminate the salah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, either on one side, or you can do it on both sides. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, go down in two sajdas. You will not repeat the tashahhud, or you'll say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Do the two sajdas, you will not repeat your tashahhud. Once you're done with the two sajdas, you will sit down and you'll say assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, complete your salah. Make sense? Now, when is sajda al-sahw necessary? The sajda of forgetfulness, or the sajda of mistake, if you want to call it, or error. إذا زاد في صلاته فعل من جنسها ليس منها. Sajda al-sahw becomes necessary if an individual increases something in his salah, which is from the same jins, which is from the jins of salah, but it is not part of the salah. For example, you perform an extra sajda, perform an extra ruku'. It is still from the same family, right? It's part of salah, but it's not part of that particular salah, right? أو ترك فعلا مسنونا. Go see if Abdul Alim is outside. He was supposed to join us for class. You know who he is? Yeah. Okay. أو ترك فعلا مسنونا, or an individual leaves an action which is an action which is a sunnah action, or he does not recite Surah Al-Fatiha, or he does not recite the Dua of Qunut, or he does not recite the Tashahhud, or he does not do the Takbirat of Eid properly or omits them completely, or the Imam recites out loud in the Salah which he should be silent in, or he's silent in the Salah that he is supposed to recite out loud in. If any one of these actions are done or are not done based upon what they are, an individual will have to perform the sajda of forgetfulness. Now, when it comes to the takbirat of Eid or something of the like, where there's a huge crowd, typically, it is okay if an individual does not perform sajda sahw due to the confusion that it may cause amongst the jama'ah, amongst the congregation. The fuqaha have discussed and they've concluded that in order to save the jama'ah from being in a state of confusion, it is okay to, as long as the takbirat are within the sunnah, it is okay to not perform the sajda sahw. So for example, according to Ahnaf, and we'll get to this when we get to it in the Salah of Eid, although the mainstream opinion is 3 takbirat in the first rak'ah additional and 3 takbirat in the second rak'ah additional. So 3 and 3 additional in your 2 rak'ah salah, so a total of 6 additional. But there is leeway, according to the Hanaf, to go up to 7, and I think some even say up to 9 takbirat. So as long as within that realm of it hasn't exceeded 7 or it hasn't exceeded 9, the salah is still valid. The salah is still valid. So if you have like 5,000 people praying behind you, instead of confusing everyone, it's okay to not perform sajda sahw at that time. وسهو الإمام يجب على المؤتم السجود. If the imam makes a mistake, will the people praying behind him, will they have to follow or not? And if the people behind the imam make a mistake, will the imam have to perform sajda sahw or not? Imam Qudoori discusses that now. He says that if the mistake of the imam obligates the a sajda upon the people who are following the imam as well. And if the imam does not make the sajda, the people behind him will not make the sajda. If the imam does not make the sajda, you yourself will not make the sajda. You will be following the imam. If he did it, you do it. If he doesn't do it, you don't do it. And if the people behind, if the muqtadi, he makes a mistake, the imam will not have to make a sajda, neither will the muqtadi. You're praying behind the imam. You don't recite Fatiha. You don't recite Qunut. You don't recite Tashahhud. You are not responsible for performing Sajdat al-Sahw. Okay? And neither will the imam perform it. If an individual in Qa'idatul Ula, he's praying a unit of 4-unit salah or a 3-unit salah. He forgets to sit in Qa'idatul Ula. Al-Qa'idatul Ula. He forgets to sit in the first sitting. And he stands back up. Now there are 2 scenarios. As he's standing, either he's closer to the ground or he's closer to standing. If he's closer to the ground, then he should sit back down and he should perform his tashahhud. If he's closer to standing, he should continue standing, he should not go back down. And at the end of the salah, he'll pray, he'll make sajda sahw. Does that make sense to you guys? You're praying salah in qa'datul ula, in the first sitting, you stand up. Now, one of two options. Either you're closer to the ground or you're closer standing up. If you're closer to the ground, what do you do? Huh? You sit down. And then what? Do you got to make sajda sahw? No. No. And what means closer to the ground? What means standing closer up? Basically, as you're getting up, if you're halfway or if you have more than halfway. All right? Simple. Don't overcomplicate it. But if you're closer to standing up, do you sit back down? No? What do? You start your third rak'ah. You'll do a sajda sahw in the end. And your last qa'idah. Okay? Now let's say a person in the final tashahhud, he forgets it and he stands up for a fifth rak'ah. What should he do then? Any guesses? Start paying attention? Yeah, a little bit, but sometimes you make that mistake. You get extra credit?
You don't know the two rak'ahs. And you raise that up, right? And you start reciting.
So it's a little complicated. All right. And so he says, you guys good now? Okay, if you forget to sit in the final qa'idah, you stand up for the fifth rak'ah. As long as you have not performed sajda for the fifth rak'ah, you will go down into tashahhud. And your fifth rak'ah is just gone, basically.
Okay, so you don't do so if you, for the fourth rak'ah, you just went straight to the fifth?
You're praying fard, okay? You forget to sit in the tashahhud in the fourth rak'ah. You stand up. You remember. The moment you remember, you're gonna go back down into your tashahhud. You'll read your tashahhud, say salam, do sajda sahw, finish your salah that way. Okay? As long as you have not made the sajda for the fifth rak'ah. Once you make sajda for the fifth rak'ah, now your fard has changed into a nafil, because there's no sixth rak'ah nafil, right? And you're going to add a sixth rak'ah, and you just prayed 6 rak'ahs in it.
So
You got to pray your fard again. You got it?
Extra credit don't work that way.
Extra credit doesn't work like that. So it was like, can Allah curve my grade?
We all feel
So Sidi, you said that if he completed the 6 rak'ah, so he need to redo like a 4 unit of the fard again, or that
Say it again, please.
if he completed the 6 rak'ah, that
Yeah.
prayer, I didn't get that. That prayer will be considered nafila or still be considered fard?
No, it changed into nafil,
Okay,
and he has to pray his fard again.
fard again. Got it.
He says, وَتَحَوَّلَتْ صَلَاتُهُ نَفْلًا.
Hawala. Yeah. Mhm.
And since it's nafil now, he adds one more rak'ah because there's no 5 rak'ah prayer. You add another rak'ah, you make it 6, and that's how you complete your salah.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Say you're in Saudi, right? So after the second or third, you get up, right? And you have to,
I know you made that mistake.
you know, I'm probably gonna make it again so once, but then I missed. But say that like I got up at the third, right? Can I just complete 4 and then just sit down? Would that count? Or like,
Come again.
so you know how we do it with 2, right?
Okay.
So say that instead of saying salam after 2, right? You got up at 3. Can I just continue and finish the 4? Do 4 instead of like do 2 more. Drag it out. So do the third one and the fourth, right? And
So
then,
you did the shahad.
and then will that count, or would I have to repeat it and read that again?
No, that would count. Since it's not fard salah you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? Fard is different. Fard is restrictive. If you're already praying something which is optional and you make that mistake, so instead of 2 now you prayed 4. But the 2 were optional too. You would still make the sahw.
Well, can I stop after 3?
No. Because there's no salah that has 3 unless it's with it. Or maghrib. Okay. وإن قعد في الرابعة ثم قام ولم يسلم. An individual, he sits in the 4th rak'ah. After the 4th rak'ah, he stands up. He has not said Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Because he's thinking in his mind that this is the first qa'dah. Okay, whether that be the 3rd rak'ah of Maghrib or it be the 4th rak'ah of any other salah. He stands back up thinking this is my first qa'dah. أعاد إلى القعود ما لم يسجد الخامسة. He will return back to sitting as long as he has not made sajda for the 5th rak'ah or for the 4th rak'ah if it's Salat al-Maghrib. And he'll say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And he'll make sajda sahu to make up for that mistake. Now, if an individual does the same thing, but he made sajda of the 5th rak'ah, he will add 1 more rak'ah. 2 rak'ahs will be nafil now, and the first 3 or the first 4 that he prayed will be counted as his fard. Does that make sense? If it does make sense, what is the difference between this and the previous scenario? Okay, let me explain this again. An individual, he prayed 4 rak'ahs. Let's take the 3 rak'ahs out of the equation for the moment. Praying 4 rak'ahs.
This is the first scenario.
No, this is the second one. Bring a book next time. You sit right here and you don't bring a book. You are praying 4 rak'ahs. Salat al-Isha. You sit in the first tashahhud and you sit in the second tashahhud. Second tashahhud, you are thinking that this is my first tashahhud. So you get back up. And now you're in your 5th rak'ah. Let's say you perform sajda for the 5th rak'ah as well. Then you realize, I did 5 rak'ahs instead of 4. You will add a 6th one. Your first 4 will be counted as your fard, and the second 2 will be counted as nafil. Huh? What? No. The first scenario, he did not sit in the second tashahhud. He had just gotten up for the 5th rak'ah. Got it?
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
I did.
All right, explain it.
Okay, so the first scenario is that it's the 4th rak'ah and he doesn't sit down with the shahad. And he gets up to the 5th rak'ah. once he realizes that it's a fifth rak'ah, and if he goes down, makes it to the sajda point, then he will continue doing, he'll add a sixth rak'ah to that.
Okay.
In this scenario,
And in that scenario, what happens with the salah?
Even if it was part salah, it doesn't count as a part salah.
Yeah, change it into nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
The second scenario is that he was reading part salah, and his fourth rak'ah, he did sit down the shahad thinking it was his first rak'ah when it was his second. But then he gets up and he does a fifth. If he makes it to sajda of the fifth rak'ah, then he has a sixth, and he gets the fourth rak'ah.
Perfect. Perfect.
Listen.
I mean,
First perfect you got from your life.
what?
I need some water after that one. These intricacies though.
Oh, this is nothing. This is a book you memorize. Yeah, this is nothing.
It's interesting and like shows how much there is.
Oh yeah, we'll wait once you get more advanced in books of fiqh. They leave nothing unturned. Like every possible scenario that could happen, they'll discuss. ومن شك في صلاته فلم يدري ثلاث صلى أم أربع. Let's say an individual is praying salah, and this never happens to you guys. This is just hypothetically speaking. You forget if you pray 3 rak'ahs or 4. Hypothetically speaking. And this is the very, very first time this has ever happened in your life. You're gonna break your prayer and you're gonna start again. But if it happens every single time you pray, which doesn't happen to y'all, you're let's get serious, man. You're praying, you forget, are you on the 3rd rak'ah or you're on the 4th rak'ah? 2 scenarios. Either this is the very first time it's ever happened in your life, or it happens often. If it's the very first time that this has happened in your life, you're gonna terminate your salah and you're gonna start your salah. Okay? But if it happens often, you're going to see what you are leaning towards more, and you're gonna leave it at that. You're gonna leave it at that. Let's say you're not leaning towards 3 or 4, and you have absolutely no idea. Then you're gonna do on that which is certain. So certainly you prayed 3 already, so you'll just suffice that 3. And you'll pray a 4th. Got it? Make sense, y'all? But it's never gonna happen to you guys. Huh? Mm-hmm. Say it again, please. If it's just a doubt, no. In Bab Salat al-Mariyad, the prayer of the sick. How much time do you have left for Salah? 25 minutes. How big is this chapter? Now let's finish this chapter. إذا تعذر على المريض القيام صلى قاعدا. If a sick individual cannot stand, he'll sit down and pray. If standing is not possible for an individual, he'll pray seated down, and he'll make ruku' and he'll make sujood in that way as well, if he possibly can. While he's seated, he'll make ruku'. While he's seated, he'll go down and sujood. Now let's say he is not able to make sajda, or is not able to make ruku' or sajda, then he'll make gestures towards that. What does that mean? You cannot make actual sajda, you're going to gesture towards your sajda. You cannot make actual ruku', you'll gesture towards it. You know, like for example, how people pray typically in chairs. You make a gesture towards it. And he's going to do it in such a way that the sajda should be lower than the ruku'. So if you're sitting, your ruku' is like this, let's say, your sajda has to be lower than your ruku'. All right? And he says that while an individual is making this ruku' and sajda, he should not raise anything towards his face. So you can, let's say you're making sajda and you want your head to touch something. So you have something and you make sajda on top of that. That shouldn't be. I've seen it happen in, yeah, happens there often. Now, if he's not able to sit, he'll recline on his back and he'll point his feet towards the qibla and he'll gesture with it for his ruku' and his sajda. So if an individual cannot stand, he's going to sit. If he cannot sit, he's going to lay down. And how is he going to lay down? His feet are going to be towards the qibla and he's going to be gesturing with for his ruku' and his sajda. Sitting down meaning he can either sit down on the ground or he can sit down on the chair. Okay. Now, if an individual lies down on his side and his face is facing the qibla instead of his feet, that is fine as well. That is fine as well. Now, if an individual is not able to make gestures with his head, he should not make gestures with just his eyes or his eyebrows. Rather, he should postpone his salah until, rather, he says he should not make gestures with his eyes, his eyebrows, or his heart. You know, just think with your heart that I'm praying. Rather, you should postpone your salah until you have the ability to actually sit down and make that gesture, or lay down and make the gesture of salah. Now, if an individual is able to stand, but he cannot make ruku' or he cannot make sajda, he does not have to stand. He can pray the entirety of his salah while sitting. Now, if he does stand, that's fine. But it's not necessary for him to stand. He can pray the entirety of his salah sitting. Make sense? If an individual starts his salah and he's standing, and let's say in the middle something happens and he can't stand anymore, he should sit down and he should finish his salah in that way. If he can sit down, he should sit down. If he cannot sit down, he should lay down and he should gesture for his ruku' and his sajda. Okay? Now, if an individual, he initially starts off sitting down and he's gesturing for his ruku' and his sajda, in the middle of the salah, for some reason or the other, now he possibly has the strength or whatever to stand up. He can complete the remainder of his prayer standing. But if an individual commences or prays part of his salah with gestures, and now he can make ruku' and he can make sajda, he will make his salah from the beginning. The difference between the two being that before individual was praying salah, he was praying seated, he was making sajda and he was making ruku' and he was making sajda. Okay? But due to an illness, he's fine now. He does not have to stand. But if he is praying with gestures, already doing something which is a substitute. Previously, he was not making gestures. Now he's already doing something which is substitute. From something which is lower, he's going to something which is higher. Now he'll have to break his salah and pray his salah from the beginning. If an individual is unconscious for a period of 5 salah or less, he'll make qada of that. But if it's more than that, he will not have to make qada. If you're unconscious for more than 5 salahs, you will not make qada. If you're unconscious for 5 salahs or less, you will make qada of your salah. Make sense? It's a little difficult chapter, not as juicy as the previous one was. Huh? The same thing. Same thing. Any questions on this? باب سجود التلاوة. This is simple. في القرآن 14 سجدة. In the Quran, according to the Ahnaf, there are 14 sajda tilawat. Sajda of recitation. Basically, there are portions of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands to make sajda. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made sajda. And we all have to make sajda at those times. There's a difference of opinion in between Imam Shafi'i and Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala in regards to Surah Al-Hajj. According to Imam Shafi'i, there are 2 sajdas in Surah Al-Hajj, and according to Imam Abu Hanifa, there is 1 sajda. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, he says only the first sajda is from an individual has to while an individual does tilawah, he will have to make sajda. According to Imam Shafi'i, both of them. Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah says the second one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just talking about the sajda of salah, and he is not commanding the sajda to be made while an individual is reciting. Let me pull up the ayah. Yeah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اركعوا واسجدوا واعبدوا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا, O people of Iman, make ruku', make sajda, and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah says this is talking about salah. This is talking about in general worship. So this is not a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make sajda. Otherwise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding to make ruku' as well. Ruku' and sajda are done together. In salah, they are not done exclusively. Sajda is not done exclusively. Ruku' and sajda are not done together outside of salah. Okay? That's the only difference of opinion that they have in regards to the sajda of tilawah. So there are a total of 14 according to Abu Hanifa. The first one being the end of Surah Al-A'raf. The second one being Surah Al-Ra'd. Third being in Surah Al-Nahl. Then Bani Israel or Surah Al-Isra. Then Maryam. And then the first one in Surah Al-Hajj, not the second one. Then Surah Al-Furqan, Naml, Alif Lam Mim Tanzil, Sad, Hamim Sajda, Surah Al-Najm, Inshiqaq, and Surah Al-Alaq. These are the 14 sajdas. Now it is necessary for an individual, once he reads them, or he hears this command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to make sajda. Now if an individual is memorizing a surah, as long as he's within one majlis, one sitting, he will not have to make multiple sajdas. If you're memorizing, you're probably going to recite it 100 times. You are not going to have to make 100 sajdas. You will just have to make one, because the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just once. Now, if you are switching spots or reciting at different times throughout the day, then, or different periods throughout the day, then you will have to make multiple sajdas, one for every time that you are reciting it. Okay? Now, if you are listening to it live, the amr will apply to you, the command of Allah will apply to you. But if you are not hearing it live, you're hearing it on YouTube or a recording or whatever have you, you will not have to make sajda at that time, because the amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was at the time when the surah was recited, when that verse was recited, when that command was recited. Now you are just hearing sound waves, so to say. You are just hearing a recording of it. Okay, so you would not have to make sajda for it. Make sense? Let's wrap up over here, inshallah, and we'll continue bi-idhnillahi ta'ala next week. We're going to try doing a little bit more next week. We'll try finishing up Kitab al-Salah next week, so we can do we'll skip Kitab al-Zakah for the time being, and we'll go to Kitab al-Siyam, just because Ramadan is coming up, inshallah. Sounds good? And then we'll revert back to Zakah, inshallah. I'll see you guys, inshallah, next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.